Oh, yeah.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Ted Alexandro Show. I am your host, Ted Alexandro, coming to you from an undisclosed location in the Northeast, the chilly Northeast of these United States of America. I hope you and yours are well as we are hurtling towards the end of January. Hard to believe, right? Am I the only one who feels as though time is speeding up of late? I guess it's that simultaneous thing of speeding up and crawling, depending on your perspective. But lately, I mean, it feels like the holidays were yesterday, New Year's, and here we are knocking on February's door, but not to rush, because this is my birthday week. That's right, folks. January 26th is my birthday. I turn 52 years old as a child of the 60s. As I so often like to refer to myself, I was born in 1969, so, that's my whole vibe. Peace, love. I'm a child of that movement. So today's episode will be in a bit of a departure, and not a moment too soon. We've talked enough about the world and everything that's wrong with it, and a few things that are right. This episode will be a bit more personal in nature, talking about me, my life, this past year, and all of the things therein. But first, of course, a brief reminder to please subscribe to the channel, hit the notifications bell, click like on this video, give us a comment, tell us your thoughts, your feelings, empty your soul down below in the comment section. And if you wish to support the show, we certainly do appreciate those who do. You can go to patreon.com/TedAlexandro. More and more great stuff popping up there every week. Bonus episodes strictly for patrons. Stand-up clips in the archives. Stuff that is exclusive to Patreon. And of course, the Ted Alexandro Comedy Academy is there as well. I believe the 11th episode is being posted this week. And that episode is themed, let's go to the videotape, talking about watching your sets, which is perhaps the most crucial, or among the most crucial, of skills, of disciplines that a comedian can have and develop, is just watching your stuff. And that's not an easy thing to do, because comedians, like a lot of people, prefer not to watch themselves. And, sometimes you cringe and you don't want to watch the videotape. You don't want to listen to it. You don't want to see how you look, hear your voice. But put all that aside, because that is an important skill towards getting better. Film your sets, watch your sets. All of that is covered in the latest class of the Ted Alexandro Comedy Academy. And that, along with all the other bonus content, is available at patreon.com/TedAlexandro. Well, friends, first off, an announcement. And this is one I would prefer not to have to make, but circumstances sort of dictated that this be the case. Our producer extraordinaire, Matthew L. Weiss, unfortunately will not be producing the show going forward. And to be perfectly honest, to be open about it, it's a financial decision because due to COVID, due to economics being what they are, I cannot pay Matthew what I want to. I said from the outset when I started the Ted Alexandro Show that I wanted to pay Matthew, my producer, what he deserves for his considerable contribution to the show, and I wanted to pay the guests. I paid the guests for as long as I could, but then when that became no longer viable, I did not pay the guests. Of course, everybody understood because typically when you do a podcast, you don't get paid. But I wanted to do that as a gesture. It kind of, my whole philosophy is that people should not work for free. They should not work unpaid. They should not work for less than what they are worth. So I paid the guests for as long as I could. And I paid Matthew for as even longer because his contribution, as I said, it is that important. And, he has been a partner for most of my comedy specials, for Teacher's Lounge, and for my first podcast, As Much As You Want. Archives available exclusively at patreon.com/Ted Alexandro. And now on the Ted Alexandro Show. And I truly could not have done it without him. And we'll see if I can do it without him. I suspect that I can. He will be holding my hand, so he still will be by proxy. So I will thank him at the end of this episode. He will be holding my hand and leading me towards the promised land should I need assistance with editing, with cobbling together, with all of the various elements that go into presenting an episode. So that bothers me. It hurts me that I had to arrive at that decision. I told Matthew about that. And he, by the way, has been very generous and has cut his rates and reduced his rates as COVID went along and was more than accommodating and overly flexible and wanted to just continue working together. But I just didn't feel right, not paying him what he deserves. So that, philosophically, that's important to me. I said it, I think, in the first episode or among the first episodes that paying people for their work matters to me. And it kind of pains me when I'm not able to. Obviously, so much of the arts and so much of the creative world is doing favors, doing things for free. As I said, podcasting very much is, doing things for free and doing things as favors to friends and self-promotion or promotion of things that you have or just interesting conversations that you want to have as well. So it all kind of falls under that. So people aren't looking to be paid. But for a time, I was able to throw some money to our guests just as a kind of an ideological, something that aligned with the way I wanted to run things. But as I said, with COVID, and I'm sure many of you can appreciate this, circumstances changed and, changes were indicated as a result. So that is where we find ourselves. This is not forever. Matthew and I will be working together in the future on many other projects going forward, I'm sure. But just because of the nature of where things stand now, I just felt it was best to figure out, a different arrangement where I will be a little bit more independent, autonomous, and scared, figuring things out as I go. And I'm sure Matthew will be helping me in the early going of this chapter. But I wanted to publicly thank Matthew, just a dear, beloved friend who has helped me every step of the way with my specials, with my podcasts, with this show, with Teachers Lounge. The best kind of creative partnership is when it doesn't feel like work, and it never has felt like work with Matthew. He's brilliant at what he does. He's funny. He's a great friend. And I thank him. Truly, I could not have done all of the aforementioned things without Matthew. And I look forward to working together in the future, as we no doubt will. So thank you, Matthew. I love you, buddy. And the check is in the mail, and we will be working together again, no doubt. Thank you, producer extraordinaire, Matthew L. Weiss. All right, my friends, we have a great episode today. As I said, it's my birthday week episode, so I will be talking a bit about some things that have been on my mind. And coming up a bit later, very special guest this week, a man whose work I have been a fan of for many years, writer, sports editor at The Nation, Dave Zirin, will be joining me just a little bit later, and we will be talking about the recently departed Hank Aaron, who passed away, the home run king who passed Babe Ruth, who some, myself included, still consider the home run king. But what a legend and what a titan of sports history and American history as well, I would offer. So very excited to have Dave Zirin on the show. Just a brilliant guy and somebody that I was excited to reach out to and to have on the show. All right, my friends. I'm 52. I don't know if my looks betray that. It's weird to say it. 52 years old. The numbers are getting bigger. It's very strange, because now I'm a married man. I have a 1-year-old son. I always wondered, what that would feel like to be a husband, to be a father. And now I'm there in the later stages of life. I'm not saying that I'm at risk. I'm a COVID senior citizen, but I am an AARP member. Let's be perfectly clear. Though I haven't been able to use any of the discounts. So yes, it is interesting, especially because this year, it's been the year of COVID, my last birthday was just as things were heating up. So it wasn't like it wasn't a COVID world just yet, but it was certainly knocking on that door as we got into February and then definitely March. But, I think my birthday last year, we were kind of paying attention to Wuhan, to Italy, to Iran, I think. Different locations where COVID was starting to rage. But it was, as Americans so often do, we thought that'll never come here. We're American. We can just will it away. But what a year it has been. Stopped working, I think, end of February, maybe beginning of March. Have not done a stand-up set other than, I think I've done 2, maybe 3 Zoom sets. But I quickly realized, no thank you. Wasn't digging it. It's fine. I'm not judging whoever does it, but for me, it was stand-up, I need to be in the room. I need to feel people, So I threw myself into this endeavor, into the Ted Alexandro show, and I've made that my focus because I felt as though this is a better use of my time now, a better thing to figure out and to interact with different guests, talk about the things that matter to me in a more direct, heavy-handed, off-putting way. Because when I talk about things on stage, I'm very much aware, and I talk about this in the Ted Alexandro Comedy Academy, you're trying to make people laugh in stand-up. So that's the ultimate goal. If I'm able to get a point across, wonderful. If I'm able to kind of talk about an issue, that's great. And I enjoy doing that. Certain jokes have a higher degree of difficulty. So if you're talking about anything that could be politically divisive or, some sort of social commentary where you'll divide the room, that takes a little bit more savvy. So I enjoy that type of thing in stand-up, and of course landing on a laugh and or something that upsets people or makes them uncomfortable. All of those things I enjoy. But with a podcast, obviously I can talk about things at length. I can talk to other people. I can kind of process things in real time. And that's another thing that has happened over the course of this year. I put out a special again with my partner, producer extraordinaire, director extraordinaire, Matthew L. Weiss. I put out Stay at Home Comedian. And that was something that kind of just came about over the course of the beginning stages of COVID. I was doing Instagram Lives every night and just processing the new weird world of COVID. And ultimately decided to cobble together some of the moments from those Instagram Lives. And Matthew very expertly crafted that into a cohesive comedy special. And the New York Times raved about it. So that was a very bizarre and pleasant, unexpected surprise that came about during this year as well, during COVID. And the success of those Instagram Lives, the success of Stay at Home Comedian, which is available for free on YouTube, as are, I think, all but one of my specials. The only one that is not at this point available on YouTube is my very first, As Much As You Want. But all of the others, as of right now, are available on YouTube. And specifically, as I said, Stay at Home Comedian. And the importance of that is because when I did those Instagram Lives, when we put together the special, I kind of realized that I liked the video element. I had been doing my podcast As Much As You Want, and I liked the video element of the Instagram Live experience. And I thought, now's the time with COVID and everything else, now's the time to switch over to video. So that's what we did. With Matthew's help, obviously, enormous help, we created the Ted Alexandro Show. And with the executive producer extraordinaire, my wife, Madeline Geraldine, who is at the helm and informs all creative decisions, did all the artwork. And obviously so much of the show is an outgrowth of things that she and I talk about and issues that we talk about and things that I bounce off of her that I think would be interesting to bring to the show. So her contribution as well is immeasurable and very much appreciated. So the Ted Alexandro Show was an outgrowth of COVID and being stuck at home and not being on the road with Jim Gaffigan. And it kind of gave me the freedom to do what I had wanted to do a while back. I wanted to do a podcast with video, and I was kind of out of excuses. So here we are. So yes, 52 years old, and I wanted to share, upon the occasion of turning 52, I wanted to share a poem that my brother Rich recently posted. My brother's a poet, and he has 2 books published. And this one resonated with me because it is fitting for the things that I'm talking about. The title of this is A 53-Year-Old Man. What is a 53-year-old man? Apparently, I am one. When my uncles were 53 years old, I thought of them as old men. Now, in their 70s and 80s, I just think of them as men. 53-year-olds own houses, don't they? Our grandfathers own 2 cars, are sure of things, are practical. My poems have more question marks in them now. Maybe my life does too. I pretend I have a daughter sometimes. I am always proud of her. She is in college or just out of college. She's funny and sharp. I try to subtly intimidate the guys she goes out with. She is too good for them, even if you put them all together. 53 is Daryl Dawkins, Herbie the Love Bug, is gray chest hair, is out of breath on steep hikes. 53 is confident. 53 wants 75, can still rap, loves road trips, is a road trip, swears by SZA, has loved the great majority of quarantine days, misses hugs, craves kisses, has more love poems in him. 53 is recording and reporting, singing more, cursing more, worrying less, is lucky, is lucky, is lucky. So that's a poem by my older brother by a year and a half, Rich Alexandro, a 53-year-old man. And I myself, as of this week, I am a 52-year-old man. So when I read Rich's poem, that resonated with me on a lot of levels. And as Rich's work so often does, touched me and made me reflect on a lot of things. I encourage you, if you wish to explore Rich's work, his 2 books are Unfazed in the Teeth of a Microscope and The Languages of Waves, which he collaborated on with Tristan Franz, I believe, Franz. So the second one was a collaboration, and the first was his own solo book. But they're both beautiful. Unfazed in the Teeth of a Microscope and The Languages of Waves, which he co-wrote with Tristan Franz. I thank my brother for his poetry. My sister, Trisha, was recently on CBS on Bull. She is an actress, and she has been working diligently for decades on her craft, working in theater, doing one-woman shows and character pieces and all this sort of thing. So I always am so thrilled. She's one of my heroes to see her shine in the spotlight as she does. So congratulations as well to my sister Trisha for her appearance on the CBS series Bull. Yeah, so just, in spite of everything, and there is a lot going on, of course, very grateful for the love that I have in my life with all of my siblings. I don't mean to leave anyone out. My brother Dave and his family, my sister Amy and her family. Lots of love to go around. My sister Trish and her partner. So yeah, there's lots to be grateful for. And all of that love from my wife, my family, my son, all of that informs the path that I walk. So those are the kind of the themes that have been on my mind as I turn 52. older, wiser, and ready to keep rumbling and ready to keep moving forward and doing the things that excite me with the people that also excite me. And certainly part of that is thanking all of you, the viewers and the listeners of the Ted Alexandro show, without whom I could not do this. All of your support is always appreciated. All of your kind words, the things that people tell me, either by social media or on the Patreon page, or even occasionally email or text message. All of the feedback, all of the kind words are truly appreciated. So thank you to one and all. All right, friends. Once again, please do hit subscribe, ring that notification bell if you would. Jump into the comments. It helps the algorithm. Say something, anything. Like this video. All of it boosts us beyond where we ever could imagine. All right, my friends. I am very excited to welcome tonight's guest. He is the sports editor at The Nation, host of the Edge of Sports podcast, co-host of The Collision, and he is always writing about all of the important things going on in America and the intersection of sports, capitalism, movements, race, all of it. Let's welcome to the show, Dave Zirin. Dave.
Hello.
Hello, sir. How are you?
Good. Is this video or audio?
This is both, if that suits you.
It's totally fine. I just am I okay? I could go up to my desk and.
You're perfect, man. You don't have to worry about a thing.
Oh, great.
Well, thank you for agreeing to do this. First off, I should start off by saying what a fan I am of your writing, of your podcast. You occupy such a singular space of somebody who really delves into all of the underlying issues within sports, capitalism, race, all of the issues that really kind of are present in America, and so present in sports, but too often are not talked about the ways that you do it. So thank you for all the work that you do in that regard.
Well, thank you. You do the same in a very difficult landscape. So it's an honor to be on your show.
Thanks, Dave. Thank you. I specifically reached out to you, Dave, because I read your piece about Hank Aaron, who passed this week, and just like such a titan of American sports. And you so beautifully wrote about him and his legacy. Can you talk a little bit about Hank Aaron and his passing and what his legacy represents?
Well, sure. Just from a baseball perspective, Hammerin Hank Aaron is absolutely, a person without peer. I mean, we're talking about somebody who made 25 all-star teams. I mean, just think about that. This week, everybody is drooling about Tom Brady. Tom Brady's made 14 Pro Bowls in his 20-plus year career. Henry Aaron, 25 all-star teams. He had so many hits that if you took away every home run Henry Aaron hit, and he hit 755 of them, he would still have 3,000 hits for his career and still be in the Hall of Fame if you literally just took away his home runs. I mean, it's just an unbelievable set of statistical accomplishments. Now, what makes Henry Aaron such an American icon beyond the world of sports is that he was able to set these records in the context of just some of the most abject racism that any athlete post-World War II has faced in this country. And I am including, people like Jackie Robinson, Muhammad Ali, Tommy Smith, John Carlos. Because when you talk about Henry Aaron, you're talking about somebody who, when he was chasing down Babe Ruth's record of 714 home runs, he received more mail than anybody in the United States not named Richard Nixon. mean, just a staggering amount of mail. And some of that mail was supportive, like, go for it, Henry, you're doing great. But a lot of that was death threats of the ugliest possible racist variety. And those were the letters that Henry Aaron kept to remind him of what he went through and to remind the world of what he went through. And the part
Yeah.
about Henry Aaron that just is unbelievable to me is, he almost hit that 715th home run in 1973, but he came up just short. And he did it in April of 74. So he had to spend that entire offseason thinking that he might be killed, thinking that someone in his family might be killed. And it was so realistic to the world that Henry Aaron might not live to hit that home run that the Atlanta Journal-Constitution actually wrote an obituary just in case he was assassinated, so they would have it on file. So that's who Henry Aaron is. That's who he was. And that's why we remember him today.
And David, it's so fascinating how a lot of times sports fans are so eager to just look at numbers, especially in this stats heavy kind of era that we're in now. It's like, let's just look at the numbers. And as you say, Hank Aaron, stands up against anyone with statistics, just in a vacuum, the numbers, right? But as you say, to achieve the numbers that he achieved, and he's in the top 10, top 5 even, in so many categories, RBIs, home runs, hits. I think had this staggering number of seasons where he had more walks than strikeouts.
Yeah, for his career, he had more walks than strikeouts.
So all of these insane statistical achievements, but you can't look at them in a vacuum. This was his career started in, I think, 54. So like it spanned like the really kind of a lot of the darkest days of the civil rights era. And he achieved these things parallel to the civil rights movement. And as you say, Jackie Robinson came in 47. He came, I think, 7 years later. But he was not, he was sleeping sometimes in the clubhouse, I read. And some of the things that you referred to that he was receiving from fans, hate mail and stuff, he was receiving those from opponents and teammates at times too. So you really can't divorce the achievements of this guy from the things that he had to endure, as you say.
Exactly. And playing a lot of that career in Atlanta, so in the South, and at a time when Atlanta was a small market and at a time when Atlanta was a white city. And so he's doing this in a very difficult context. He's not playing in San Francisco like Willie Mays or in a place that would be more cosmopolitan and less racially entrenched with Jim Crow. And he not only played with alarming consistency, but he also was somebody who stood up and against Jim Crow and was heard on those issues at a time when it was very dangerous to be so. So it really, like, the degree of difficulty with which he had this tremendous career is just something that can't be discounted at all. When we assess the accomplishments that he did. I mean, when he started playing Major League Baseball, it was not every team had black players at all. The league wasn't fully integrated until 1959. And every team truly had quotas. Like, you can only have so many black players on the team. And by the early 70s, when he retired, the Pittsburgh Pirates fielded an all-black starting lineup, including the pitcher. So think about that amount of change between when he started and it's segregated and he's having to stay in his own lodgings when the team travels in the South and eat by himself, to go from that to the Pittsburgh Pirates having an all-black starting 9. I mean, that's monumental change. And when you think about the level of just concentration that it takes to play Major League Baseball, and his ability to do that day in, day out, literally the most consistent player to ever take the field. Because he never had like some major showy season. He never hit 50 home runs in a year. So just this consistency year in, year out, in the context of such hatreds that swirled around him. I mean, it's remarkable.
Yeah, and he also played a season or two in the Negro Leagues too, right? So he had ties. He was one of the last guys that had ties by the time he retired to the Negro Leagues.
Yeah, the Indianapolis Clowns, as they were called. And we're losing those players at a record pace, like players who can truly attest to what it meant to play in the Negro League. So that's another reason a mark is passing, certainly.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you mentioned Tom Brady, because I so often think about, especially these athletes that are lionized, the white athletes that are kind of they become statues while they play, uh, because of the fact that they don't have to face
Yeah.
they don't have to face the same things that their black counterparts face. Uh, Colin Kaepernick being the obvious counterpart to that. Tom Brady or Drew Brees or these types of guys, the Peyton Mannings of the world, they can stay in a very kind of safe lane. They can choose a safe cause, whether it's cancer or whatever, something that is not in any way, divisive. Everybody, like nobody's like, fuck cancer except fuck the disease. So these guys can stay in a safe lane in terms of the causes that they pick, and they have a foundation, and they just further become that statue that I'm talking about. Whereas Colin Kaepernick or Cam Newton or any of these guys, they have to face so many other peripheral things. Again, tying back to Hank Aaron, I think those things get lost so often. The accomplishments of black athletes, that they also have to kind of navigate this world that their white counterparts really have the option of opting into or completely
Yes.
staying out of.
I was asked the question on a different show. Can we now call Tom Brady the greatest American athlete to ever live? And what I said was, look, if you want to call him the greatest quarterback to ever play, you could certainly make that case. But I would make the case that you could never call a white athlete the greatest athlete to ever play, or white male athlete, to be clear, because the reason you just said, because they don't have the burden of representation that comes with playing. They can focus just on playing. Not that Tom Brady hasn't made his share of mistakes over the years, but when he messes up, it's Tom Brady's mistake, not white people's mistake. When black athletes mess up, it becomes this question of representation, like this burden of, well, what kind of music are you listening to? How are you wearing your clothes? Who is the posse that you are hanging out with? And it's this whole representation. And that's how it is in normal times. When there are periods of struggle, like we've seen in the last couple of years in the Black Lives Matter movement, there is this expectation that you are going to have to say something. And if you don't say something, that's read as a statement that's as serious as saying something, and you get a different kind of criticism from a different sector. And
Do you,
you think
mean
of people
specifically
like
black? Do you mean black athletes?
black athletes.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of people like Jordan and Tiger Woods. And to go to Henry Aaron's time, people like Willie Mays. There have always been star black athletes who've made the decision, politics is just not for me. But in periods of heightened struggle, and Willie Mays dealt with this, and Tiger Woods has certainly dealt with this, you get criticism as well for not speaking out. And so a lot of those athletes, that they've made the case that, like, no one's asking like Phil Mickelson what he thinks about the federal death penalty. No one's asking Phil Mickelson about what he thinks about the fact of women not being allowed to play at certain golf courses. But that's something that Tiger, and believe me, I've written 1,000 columns criticizing Tiger Woods. I'm not giving him a pass on anything. It's just to say that to the Tiger Woodses of the world, deal with things that Tom Brady's never have to deal with. They can focus solely on the task of their play, which is why I don't think you can call Tom Brady the greatest athlete, because of the absence of obstacles he has to deal with in order to ply his trade.
Yeah, it's funny. I did a bit in one of my specials about how racism was kind of like the first steroids in a certain sense, that white guys in the early NBA were playing, these guys that should have been plumbers or whatever were playing professional sports, so that the landscape was severely skewed. But all of these things do skew the landscape and the things that athletes are able to achieve and the peripheral things that they have to deal with. I want to ask you about a contemporary of Aaron's, just as because I think it's another good comparison. Somebody like Mickey Mantle, who was celebrated for his off the field exploits and drinking and carousing and right, all these things, like the complete opposite of the way a black athlete could conduct himself. But that kind of thing had to gall somebody like, I would imagine somebody like Hank Aaron or black athletes in general, that here's this, this precious white boy being celebrated who shows up drunk half the time and, is a great player in his own right, but just the different set of circumstances.
And also because, the media not only protected Mickey Mantle, but they hung out with Mickey Mantle. They drank with Mickey Mantle. They caroused with Mickey Mantle. Let's all go to Toots Shores and have a night on the town. They never did that with Jackie Robinson. And Jackie Robinson was getting speeches from Branch Rickey about the utter importance of his representation when he's off the field, basically being told, if you want to see more black athletes in Major League Baseball, you better live, a very certain kind of buttoned up life, or else the examples are going to be used against the players to come. And with that comes a certain amount of pressure too. And we've only, broken out of that in recent years. And you could argue in some cases we haven't broken out of that. Like, for example, there are always people looking to tear down athletes, like LeBron James is someone who comes to mind. And if LeBron James served to live a certain kind of life, that would be used not only against him, but against the idea of athletes using their politics for a greater purpose. You saw this when LeBron James was part of the NBA players who went on strike last August. One of the first things that happened was Jared Kushner being on CNN. This is Jared Kushner of all people, like somebody who was birthed in a cosseted privilege, the likes of which 99.9% of the world could not imagine. And here's Jared Kushner talking about LeBron being privileged enough to go on strike and how, meat packers can't do that. It's like, dude, you're sending meat packers to their deaths. And now you're going to use them as a shield, as a way to criticize LeBron James. To me, that is racism right there. Because you're saying that he doesn't have the right to politics. He should just shut up and play. And that's an old racist trope. And it's the sort of thing that the Mickey Mantles of the world never had to deal with.
And so much of I think the prism through which America consumes sports, and I'm sure you have a lot of thoughts on this being a sports writer. It's through the white lens. As you say, the media, going back to Hank Aaron's days, were hanging out with the white athletes, drinking with them. They were friends. They would keep certain secrets. They would uphold certain, they would kind of, prop them up, their image and all of this. And black athletes didn't have the same access. And certainly you could argue non-English speaking athletes as Latinx players came in also had similar issues. But because to this day, it's largely a white lens through which sports runs, would you say that a lot of the white media still is complicit in not really putting on a journalistic hat? It's more like they're kind of serving the league, or they're serving ESPN, or they're serving, their own interests.
Progress is glacial in the world of sports writing, but that doesn't mean there hasn't been significant change to how sports is reported over the last, I would say, 15, 20 years. In the time that I've been a sports writer, there have been galactic changes, yet that dynamic you're talking about still remains. The changes that I'm referring to have to do first and foremost with social media and with athletes being able to get their words, message, and ideas out to the public the way they want to say them, whether it's over IG, Twitter, Facebook, what have you. They can say, this is what I think, and not have their words distorted, not have to go through a filter. So that has necessitated a lot of change in the world of sports writing. The other big change of sports writing is that you've seen develop in the Trump era this, I'm not going to name names just because I don't believe in giving people like this free publicity, but this sector of sports writers who are openly crypto fascists. And they've decided to set up a pole of attraction as people who are racist, who do want athletes to shut up, who do think that sports is about, you entertain me and I'm going to, get hammered. And if you do anything to break that kind of, that sheltered space, that safe space, if you will, then you're an enemy and part of the problem. And you've also seen more sports writers who are political and who are willing to look at sports from different angles. And you've seen more academics who have always tried to look at sports through a more holistic lens, starting to break out and write more popular pieces. So there have been some nice changes over the last 20 years and some ugly changes over the last 20 years. But the fundamental issue that you describe, which is who's doing the reporting, what do they look like, how much diversity is there, how much diversity of thought is there, when you're talking about newspapers, sports radio, ESPN, there the progress is truly glacial.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And maybe just as a final thought, thinking about, Hank Aaron, as I think about like his contemporaries, black athletes, you kind of have, the one line sentence of Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier. I think about other sports guys like Bill Russell, who was seen by the white media as prickly and radical, was seen largely as, a winner first and foremost, but also a proud black man who was not shy about expressing his thoughts. Hank Aaron, I guess, was kind of in between in that, as you say, he did speak out at times over the years,
Mm-hmm.
but there was more of a reserve to Hank Aaron.
Mm-hmm.
But how would you kind of, in the final analysis, talk about both? I mean, obviously, his impact as a player is singular. So that alone could be it. But he's a black man in America, so there's always more to say.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, strong recommendation for people to read a book called The Last Hero about Henry Aaron by Howard Bryant. And it goes through how Henry Aaron, behind the scenes, supported people fighting Jim Crow, how he behind the scenes made his stands against segregation of ballparks when he was coming up, about how, till the end of his life, he was sitting on a board that dealt with making sure that people who were arrested got decent representation in court. So the political mind of Henry Aaron was always central to who he was. And he happened to be soft-spoken, as you said. He wasn't somebody to jump on the box and let folks know where he was coming from, but he was somebody who everybody knew was a political person. He had that reputation and that respect, and he never received the kind of withering glare that the black press gave Willie Mays, for example. For if you go back and look at articles, there was a lot of anger in the black press towards Willie Mays because he had so much fame, but openly defended his right not to speak, his own right to not speak out. And Henry Aaron was never subjected to that because people really didn't know where he stood.
Well, Dave, I really appreciate you making the time. Like I said, everything you put out, I always read, and yeah, I appreciate the perspective that you bring, and thank you for speaking on Hank Aaron today.
Well, thank you for the example and the career that you've built, Ted. It means a lot to a lot of folks.
I appreciate that. All right, sir. I'll speak to you down the road. Be
Sounds
well.
Good.
Okay.
You as well.
Thanks. Dave Zirin, everybody. A man who always is able to cogently bring together the world of sports and politics, race, capitalism, all the things, all the juicy things that I certainly appreciate and are not really talked about enough in kind of mainstream sports analysis. So fascinating to have some time with Dave Zirin, and very much appreciate Dave making the time. Follow Dave on Twitter at Edge of Sports. Thank you again, Dave Zirin. All right, my friends, before we wrap up, I did want to just have a quick segment where I flash back, because about a year ago, well, maybe not a year ago, I guess a while ago, I got booked for a gig at Helium in Philadelphia for Valentine's weekend. That's right. I talked about it on the show. I got booked for a gig at Helium Comedy Club, one of my favorite clubs in the country. They always treat me beautifully. I love the folks there, love the crowds there. But during COVID, I can't remember the exact month. Maybe it was 6 months ago. I got booked for a headline weekend for Valentine's weekend in Philadelphia. Let's flash back to that. I have booked one show just because my booking agent, my longtime booking agent, who I stopped working with, and then we had a conversation. He was like, "Hey, you want to try it again?" I'm like, whatever. So occasionally he sends me gigs. So he was like, "Do you want to do Helium in Philly for Valentine's Day?" I said, "No, I'm retired." He said they're offering, it was like 4 nights. I'm like, "No, 2 nights." He's like, "Well, Valentine's Day is on the Sunday, so they're not going to do Saturday, Sunday." I'm like, "All right, let's do 3. I'm not doing 4. There's no way I'm doing 4. So we'll do Friday, Saturday, Sunday." And look, also with COVID, I don't even know if it's still going to be, if it's going to be like 10% capacity, I'm not doing the gig, or whatever the hell it is. So that one's on the books. Make your plans now for Valentine's Day 2021. You and your loved ones can come out and get COVID. The third wave. The third wave is falling in love. Wouldn't that be something if the third wave of COVID was falling in love? So I do, I guess I'm talking out of both sides, as cult leaders tend to do. I do have one gig on the books next year. And I've got an eye towards canceling, but we'll see. As it comes up, obviously, I will honor, unless it seems like like some sort of medical threat. I'm not putting myself in harm's way. I'm not putting others in harm's way. Well, my friends, I must be psychic. There's more than one psychic in this family, because I had a hunch, and here we are. I will not be appearing at Helium in Philadelphia, PA, for Valentine's weekend, as you may or may not have guessed. That weekend will not be happening, at least not with me. I don't think they're open at all, but I messaged them recently and said, I'm sorry, I will not be able to make it with COVID still raging, spiking, and a pregnant wife at home. I do not want to risk it. So I just thought it would be fun to look back at that, because I kind of knew when I booked it. I didn't have a very strong sense that the gig was going to happen. With COVID being what it is, who knows if I'll even be working Valentine's Day of 2022. I mean, the way things are going, who the hell knows? I hope I am. But as of now, I am in semi-retirement. So there we go, friends, for a little flashback. Well, friends, that is our episode, and what a great one it has been. Thank you to our guest, Dave Zirin, sports editor at The Nation, at Edge of Sports on Twitter. Great to catch up with Dave Zirin. And as always, we thank our executive producer extraordinaire, the man on the ones and twos, or at least the ones, the man with the plan, the man to whom we owe a debt of gratitude. Thank you, Matthew L. Weiss.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes. And thank you to our maestro, the man who provides the bed of music upon which we lay. He is Pro DLC. Listen to his music wherever you stream music. Thank you, Pro DLC. And we thank our executive producer extraordinaire, she who rules with an iron fist, but a heart of gold, always. Thank you, Madeline Geraldine. I love you very much. And thank you, everyone listening, watching. Please hit subscribe, ring that notification bell, jump in the comments, like this video. And of course, if you wish to support the show, it is greatly appreciated. Go to patreon.com/Ted Alexandro. Thank you, one and all. Be well. Age ain't nothing but a number. But man, those numbers do keep on going up, don't they? Until next time, peace, everyone.